Welcome to Episode 2 of the Canada History Society's video series about British Columbia's entry into Canadian Confederation. In this episode, we examine the 1858 Fraser River Gold Rush and its resultant transformation of British Columbia. It began quietly, not with grand proclamations or the beat of military drums, but with a simple metallic clink in a prospector's pan. The year was 1858, and the Fraser River, flowing wild through the rugged territory, soon to become British Columbia, held within its sandbars a hidden fortune. The first significant discovery was made near Hill's Bar, not far from the burgeoning settlement of Yale, by a group of American prospectors, chief among them Edward Hill, whose name became forever attached to the spot where gold was found in astonishing quantity. Historian Hubert Howe Bancroft would later record that these men had unwittingly ignited a spark that would transform a distant British wilderness into a magnet for global ambition. Word of the discovery spread with a rapidity that startled even seasoned observers. Miners who had tasted the ephemeral prosperity of California's rush heard whispers first, rumors trickling northward through San Francisco taverns, trading posts, and docks. Historian Margaret Ormsby captures the moment vividly. The news was like a match set to dry tinder. Within weeks, the Fraser became a fabled El Dorado, a beacon for restless spirits and hopeful dreamers. Steamships departing from California were suddenly crammed with prospectors, their decks heavy with the dreams and desperation of thousands. By the summer of 1858, what had started as a trickle had become a flood. Over 30,000 miners descended upon the Fraser River Canyon, overwhelming small outposts such as Hope and Yale, and eventually New Westminster. The majority were Americans, seasoned in the chaos of frontier living. Yet the deluge brought forth a diverse multitude. Europeans, Australians, Mexicans, and Chinese miners, all driven by gold fever. Notably, black miners from California, fleeing discrimination and oppression, sought a freer, if equally precarious existence along the Fraser. The Chinese miners, disciplined and tireless, rapidly established themselves as indispensable laborers and entrepreneurs, dramatically reshaping the economic and cultural fiber of the region. Historian Jean Barman notes, British Columbia's cultural tapestry was woven swiftly and irreversibly by this influx, each thread representing distinct hopes and distinct hardships.
November 1858 sees the proclamation of the governor of British Columbia, James Douglas, of course, under the Union Jack at Fort Langley. It's a very important day, and typically of the times it was stormy weather and lots of rain. Admiral Baines was there representing the Royal Navy. It was a most important and significant day. I need to mention, it's really significant that the ethnic makeup of British Columbia changed with the gold rush. First of all, blacks numbering 800, according to one authority, arrived in Victoria on the first vessel. And in addition to this, Chinese began to arrive. And by the end of 1858, it was said that there were 2,000 in Victoria. So these were bound for the Fraser River Gold Rush as well.
The quiet settlement of Victoria on Vancouver Island, then merely a British outpost, was transformed overnight. Historian Barry Goff describes Victoria in these heady months as a town suddenly thrust into maturity, its streets choked with tents, saloons, and supply stores, its harbor crowded with steamers, uploading pickaxes and ambitions alike. Yet this influx carried more than mere numbers. It brought lawlessness, a reckless frontier mentality, and open defiance of British authority. Many American miners, emboldened by their own nation's ideology of manifest destiny, viewed British sovereignty as temporary, assuming the region would inevitably become part of the United States. Tensions simmered occasionally flaring into violence as British administrators struggled to assert control. Governor James Douglas, the autocratic and pragmatic leader of Vancouver Island, responded swiftly. He recognized the existential threat posed by the chaotic influx and potential loss of British authority. Douglas dispatched magistrates and constables to enforce British law and introduced mining licenses to control and profit from the rush. In a masterstroke of political foresight, he successfully petitioned London to establish a new colony, British Columbia, thus formally anchoring the region to the British Empire. Historian G.P.V. Krieg described as Douglas's response as both firm and far-sighted, a combination of iron-handed governance and pragmatic flexibility. London's reaction, initially sluggish, soon turned decisive. The British Colonial Office, faced with reports of anarchy and the Americanization of the region, was jolted into action. Historian Adele Perry observes, the Colonial Office saw the Fraser River Gold Rush not merely as commercial opportunity, but as a crisis of empire, necessitating immediate and robust action. Thus, in August 1858, the British Parliament created the colony of British Columbia, appointing Douglas as its first governor, placing upon him the extraordinary burden of governing two colonies simultaneously.
When the bars of the Thompson and Fraser River began to yield gold, as had been known that they would right from Blanchard's time, the Hudson Bay Company was first in off the mark, as you would expect they were. But sooner or later, the news got to Portland, to Olympia, to San Francisco, and to London about the possibilities of the gold rush. What does this mean to a government which is on Vancouver Island at that time with only supervisory powers over the mainland? The alarm bells are sent out by James Douglas, who reports what's going to happen and what can be expected. When the ships start arriving in Victoria with thousands of miners on board destined for the Fraser River, the local authority, Douglas, says, well, we're going to have rules and regulations, and it can start charging entry fees to the Fraser River, and you're going to have you've got to have a permit to do this and that. After all, he says, Hudson Bay Company controls this particular area, and it's ours by control of all British commerce. Well, as a matter of fact, most of these people were not British, so therein lay the problem. And in London, Lytton, who was the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, says, we can't do that, James Douglas, but what we can do is we can pass immediately an Act of Parliament, which they do in August, to create a colony called British Columbia. It will be separate from that of Vancouver Island, but the governor will be the same, one for each colony. And we will institute this and send out a governor or send out a judicial system that will make this possible. Hence, Begbie arrives in due course, Matthew Bailey, Begbie.
Yet, as rapidly as the rush had begun, its first wave ebbed. By late 1858, easily accessible gold was increasingly scarce, leaving behind thousands of disillusioned miners. However, the transformation wrought upon the land and its people remained profound and irreversible. Historian Donald Swainson captured the essence succinctly. The history of British Columbia is brief. Gold made it, and gold unmade it. The Fraser River Gold Rush, though brief, irrevocably changed the face of British Columbia, laying foundations for settlements, roads, and infrastructure, but also setting the stage for future conflicts and cultural encounters. The Fraser River had whispered gold and altered destinies, drawing together a world of desperate humanity into a single, frenzied narrative, a narrative that was only just beginning. In our next episode, we explore in detail the formation of the colony of British Columbia.